There's Greg. We'll give it just one more minute before we get started. But thank you guys for joining us tonight for the cheerleading pre-competition webinar. Attach what it's going through right now are some slides with some information on Braving the Attempt, obviously, Play Size Plunge, which is a fundraiser that's happening this summer. The 2024 Plunge website is up and ready to go. I am currently registered with $0. And then talking about healthy athletes. All right, I have 7 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Mike, I'm going to start sharing my screen. All right. So thank you all for joining us tonight for the 2023 Summer Games pre-competition cheerleading webinar. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Melissa Anger. I am the staff liaison for cheerleading. On this call, we also have Anna McCauley, our venue director, and Greg Collins, our assistant venue director, and our head official for years and years and years and years, and who gets us all of our officials, our amazing officials for Summer Games and the required qualifier. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Tonight, we're just going to go over the general Summer Games information, talk about schedules, venue maps, and then go into the competition information. So I'm going to hand it over to Steve and get started.
Thank you, Anger. So the first thing we'll do is unveil the logo for the Summer Games, inclusion, the final frontier. So there's a little debate, is this Star Wars or Star Trek? I think it's a little bit of combination of everything, but I wanted to share with you the logo of Summer Games. You'll see throughout the Summer Games on different platforms. Next up, we have the general map and layout of Towson University. Where the cursor is now is the cheerleading competition that has not changed from the Towson Center as in years past. Those of you who may be staying on campus, participating in other sports after the competition on Friday, is where the cursor is now in the West Village area, and that's where the dining will take place for dinner on Friday for only those who are officially registered and staying overnight on campus. And then there's also housing locations up the road a little bit in the tower location. And you'll see the other competition venues throughout. And the different bus stops and the parking lots, etc. So cheerleading, those of you who've been there before, you know that parking lot fills up. And you can also park in the other locations, mostly the lots 4 and 5 over by the stadium. And there will be shuttles picking up there to transport people over to the Towson Center.
And it is not it's an easy walk. There's a path, a very clear path that walks from lot 4 over to the Towson Center.
Yeah, and right behind Towson Center is where the CQ Arena is. That's where the opening ceremony will take place, block party, Olympic Park, etc. So those are that's the basic information as far as cheerleading is concerned. But you can take a look at this map. It'll be provided again with the slide deck that will be sent out hopefully by tomorrow. Also posted on our coaches resource page, and then the event guide, which is also posted and has been on our coaches resource page that's open to general public. Basic schedule, well, not a basic schedule, the general schedule. Not going to go line by line on this in the interest of time, but you guys will talk about cheerleading specific, but obviously cheerleading competition will be on Friday. That's the only competition other than some events for swimming also occurring on Friday. All of the other competitions and sports will take place Saturday and Sunday. We do, like we talked about, have the block party there at CQ lot that will lead into the opening ceremony. A lot of great activities planned for that. One other thing I do want to mention again with meals, obviously you guys as cheerleading participants and officially registered individuals through your lunch order will be provided your lunches. but dinner, again, for those who are not staying overnight, will not be provided. So you're on your own if you're not staying overnight. If you're sticking around for the opening ceremony, lots of places around campus, etc., to go have a meal or whatever. So a lot of good stuff there. Same thing for Saturday and Sunday. The next slide after this one, not going to go into a lot of detail, but again, it's here for your reference to take a look at. With the Olympic Park on Saturday evening leading into the dance. Out of This World is the theme for the dance. They're looking forward to seeing some creative costumes and things of that nature. And then again, we'll talk more about some of the specifics with cheerleading. But again, this is just for you to have as a reference. And again, you can share it with families, friends, spectators, supporters, anything of that nature to take a look at the general schedule. Same as Sunday. There we go. One of the things we'll talk about is also in those schedules, there is a Healthy Athletes program that will be happening at the University Union. Strongly encourage anybody who is around during those times to go and get your free health screenings. It can be life-changing in many ways, and in sometimes life-saving, depending on what the doctors and physicians find. So really, really strongly encourage anybody who is available to go take advantage of those health screenings. There will be some prizes for those things as well, depending on how many stations you get to. The opening ceremony we talked about at the CQ Arena. That'll be happening on Friday evening. Lot 7 will be blocked off for the block party, the staging of the parade for the athletes, as well as our buses making the loops in and out leading into the opening ceremony. But the block party will have a lot of music, some DJs playing that music, some entertainment, whether it's sports activities and many other things. So we did send out today to the heads of delegation a request to have their designated individuals, 2, possibly 3 individuals, to walk in to carry the banner representing their county program or their area program. Otherwise, everyone will be in their seats and ready for the opening ceremony to begin on Friday evening. That is not something coaches to send to Anger or Anna McCauley or Greg. Hey, here's our banner carriers. Work with your head of delegation. And if you have nominees, if you haven't already talked about that, send those to them and they will supply that to Mike Sarnowski for the opening ceremony. Transportation, I am not going to go through this in great detail. Just know that, as you saw on the map, there are each parking lot, there will be shuttles coming to and from every competition venue, the housing venues, as well as the dining facilities. Those will be running at each stop, probably around every 10 minutes. So I know last year we had a lot of people parking up by the stadium and saying, well, the shuttle's not here, we need to walk. It is a pretty quick walk. But I know a lot of people were going not the route that Anger told you behind the stadium, but going down the hill and back up the Towson Center. Many people who were doing that walk, by the time they got to the bottom of the hill and then had to trek up the hill, the shuttle bus already stopped at the stop where they should have stayed and passed them along the way. So I highly encourage you guys to use the shuttle systems. But again, you can stand on those buses around campus, and each bus does have a lift for handicap accessible. So just so you're aware of that. And again, just some details here that if you want to read, but hopefully you guys trust me that the buses will be running, the shuttles will be running throughout the day. If for some reason there's a delay in competition, for whatever reason, those buses will be extended for the amount, obviously, to get through each of the competitions, whether it's cheerleading, track and field, or whatever. But like I said, they'll be making all the stops around campus at each one of our touch points. And this was more about the transportation. Obviously, we have some individuals going off-site to softball in Ellicott City, and we talked with them just before this webinar on their webinar explaining that in greater detail. And we already hit on all those points, so that's great. One thing I do want you guys to realize is if you're up by the stadium and park there, you walk or you traverse down the hill coming back up to the CQ Arena and Towson Center. Off to your left, there is a loading dock by the stadium. That is off limits. If someone parks in there, they will be towed. So there is a parking lot by the soccer stadium, but if you go into the loading dock area by the University and Unitas Stadium, football stadium, lacrosse stadium, and others, you will be towed. So just make sure no one parks in that loading dock. We don't want to have to tow anybody at their own expense. Again, at the end of opening ceremony, for those of you who are staying around, and we hope everyone will partake in the opening ceremony. At the end of that, if you are staying on site overnight, we will dismiss the delegations on a call list after the opening ceremony has concluded, and we'll go get in the buses, and they'll be shuttled back to their housing facilities. First come, first serve on those buses as far as when the delegations get let out in order. Please remain seated until your delegation is called. And again, those individuals would be taken back in a timely manner there to their dormitories for housing overnight. Some general updates. We talked about Olympic Park and the Victory Dance. Again, lots of very cool things there. There'll be some merchandise sales, a lot of sports activities, just general fun. That is not just for delegation members. Anybody is allowed to come to that and have a good time and engage with the activities there. The only thing we will ask as coaches, if you're in that area, please be mindful and keep a lookout for the individuals you're responsible for, and so that everyone's safe and sound. Meals, kind of hit on this a little bit. Obviously, you guys will have lunches for cheerleading. The only sport that will be provided lunches on Friday. Those will be delivered to the venue. As coaches, Melissa Anger, Anna, and those individuals in charge of the venue will let you know when the lunches have arrived. Please don't have individuals come up and say, I'm here to pick up the lunch for John, or I'm here to pick up the lunch for Anna. They will be delivered by delegation or by team for cheerleading, and the head coach for each team can come pick those up or send one designee or two to pick up the lunches and get them to the individuals so they can have their lunch. We talked about the overnight stays and the dinners and breakfasts. And again, there is no option for people to go to the dining centers where the delegations will be fed to buy an additional meal. That option is not available. So just want everyone to be aware of that. Again, there's a lot of great local establishments around Towson University to partake in meals and frequent the local establishments. Control center for the games will be opening very early each morning, depending on 5:30, but that's in the University Stadium on the press box side in the Minigan room. That is designated primarily only for heads of delegation. That's the leader of your county or area program. If you have a serious situation that needs to be addressed, you can deal with that at the control center at cheerleading, or have your head of delegation come contact the control center and we'll work through those situations. But again, it's a very intense environment in that room, as you can imagine, dealing with everything throughout the entire summer games. So just want to be respectful of that space. As far as those who may be staying overnight in housing, Jane Dunn, longtime member of our management team, has worked with the heads of delegation to house everyone and get their assignments done, and that is being finalized as we speak. And you'll be notified as a coach if you're staying overnight exactly which location you're in if you haven't been notified already. If you are staying overnight, depending on if mostly it would be leaving on Sunday. Just a reminder that your keys will need to be turned in at the front desk of whichever housing facility you're in upon your exit. If there are missing keys that aren't reported or not reported, aren't turned in, there is a pretty major fine for those, and that will be passed on to the county or area program. I believe it's about $75 per key. At least that's been the history of those. So please make sure no keys are lost and that each key is turned in for those of you who are staying overnight after the cheerleading competition. The event guide has a lot of great information in it. It's been posted on our coaches resource page in the summer games section. This is the link. If you haven't checked that out or you're unfamiliar with our coaches resource page, very easy. You just Google Special Olympics Maryland. There's a tab at the top when you get to our general website that says coaches. Hit on that. There's a little drop down that says coaches resources, and then you can navigate from there to the summer games section, the event guide, the cheerleading section or the cheerleading page, etc. But share this with families, spectators, supporters, athletes, partners, whatever. It's open to the general public. There's nothing that's hidden information or only for coaches. So just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. And if you wear many hats, like I know most coaches do, involved throughout the year, always check the coaches resource page. We try to keep that up as date as much as possible. And it's a really good resource. A lot of questions can be answered there before you send an email to Melissa Anger or others regarding what sport it is. Medical information, just a reminder, summer games, it can be hot, a lot of intensity, etc. with the state level championships. So just a reminder to make sure everyone's staying hydrated and is eating their meals throughout the days, etc. I always mention this to our staff and our management team, etc. We're the worst of abiding by this information. We're always out running around and we forget to drink water or stay hydrated. So as coaches, same thing may pertain to you. You're worried about everybody else on your team and the people under your care, but also look after each other. If you see another coach, hey, when's the last time you had a drink of water? When's the last time you had something to eat? So really be mindful of that. And then also after the cheerleading competition, if you're hanging around, coming out to see other events, etc. throughout the weekend, keep in mind about sunscreen and the heat components that that time of summer can bring, etc. Protests, if there is a protest, again, you follow that at the control center with Anna, Greg, and Melissa Anger for cheerleading. And they will rule on that with their sports rules committee. And if there is an appeal where if the protest was denied, you wish to appeal that decision, you can fill out another form. It's basically on the same form. Just give a little bit more information of why you want to appeal the denied protest. And then we also have a games rules committee that will rule on that appeal that's filed by the head coach only. That's not for families, athletes, partners. With the exception of track and field or athletics, there is a rule that does state an athlete or partner can file a protest or an appeal on their own behalf. Otherwise, it needs to come from the head coach in all other sports. Coaches and their credentials or your name badge, if you will. As we've been stating for at least a year, we do take that seriously as far as your certifications go. And once in our games management system, which means you've been registered, we do a thorough search to make sure that everyone's credentials are up to par and up to the certification level needed, as whatever level you were registered for. If we do find there's a situation where a head coach doesn't have the certification needed or all the courses, they have been downgraded to the next highest level of certification they have earned. So again, as a reminder for coaches, always, as we talked about in the preseason webinar and everything else, make sure not only your athletes and partners have their medicals and waivers and everything in place, but you as a coach have all of your certifications up to date. And that information can also be found on our coaches resource as well, with a list of status reports regarding your certifications. Weather, we are looking at the weather, ladies and gentlemen. We always have many people approaching us as staff members and management team. Hey, have you looked at the weather lately, especially for the sports that'll be conducted outside? We continuously monitor the weather leading into the summer games and each day and hours during the summer games. Obviously, when cheerleading, you guys are indoors, but for those that will be participating in other activities, we do have evacuation procedures in place, working with Towson University and our management team. That information, if deemed necessary and activated, will come from the lead person at each one of the venues please remain calm and follow the instructions so that we can all be safe and go to the proper location in the event of emergency or an evacuation. If there is anybody who is maybe staying around and just spectating and going to track and field or bocce or whatever else that's outside and they're putting up a pop-up tent, that's fine. But if we have wind coming in, we will make a determination potentially that those need to come down. We have had situations in the past where that's been a very hostile environment with people not wanting to take their tents down. It's not because we're trying to be mean. It's obviously we're looking out for the safety of everyone. You've all seen it or heard about it, a pop-up tent being blown by the wind, neither injuring someone or injuring property. So just be please mindful of that and let family members know, hey, they're not just being ridiculous. There's a reason for them asking you to take down their tents. With that, I will turn it over to the cheerleading experts. And I do want to also say I enjoyed the required qualifier and really enjoyed all the routines and meeting a lot of athletes and coaches. So good job up to this point. Let's end this on a strong note. And I'll leave that now to Anna, Anger, and Greg. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody's looking as forward to as I am for our upcoming competition. As I had showed in our pre-season webinar, we are one team away from our numbers pre-COVID, which I am extremely excited about. So we'll open the venue to the teams to check in and register and begin their music checks at 9:15. Please, I know that they're excited, but we do have some athletes that are arriving an hour sometimes or more before the event. We can't accommodate them because we're still in the process of setting up the venue. So, you know, if you could please speak to your parents about that, I would greatly appreciate that. We'll have a quick head coaches meeting at 9:45 in the center of the mat. This is just for any last minute information myself or Greg needs to share with the coaches. This isn't a time where you would be able to ask us a division question or anything like that. This is just a quick, how you doing? Let's get started for that. Our welcoming ceremony will begin at 10:15 a.m. And if you are part of the welcoming ceremony, please make sure that I have your athletes by the podium by 10 a.m. We are going to have, I like to call it official/quick lunch break because everybody will be getting there at 9 in the morning. So we'll have a quick little break for the officials to be able to get up, stretch their legs, and we'll have our lunch, and then we'll continue with competition. Immediately, we'll be setting up for awards directly after the last team presents the routine to the officials, and then we will present awards, anticipating that we should be finished with the venue about no later than 3 p.m. That, of course, that is our tentative schedule. Okay. Our venue map has not changed. We are in the Towson Center. We will have our venue set up as we have the last 10 years or more. So you'll enter in from the main parking lot, which I believe is now number 4, not 21. Register your teams, and then, of course, take them into the competition area. We will have our team dedicated seating as in the past in the bleachers, and then, of course, our spectator seating. And the only thing that I ask is please remind your parents and your other coaches and such to respect the flow of traffic so that when a routine is being presented, that we're not having the movement, we're not walking behind the judges during the competition. So let's just grab into, I'd just like to go over a few things just for a quick reminder. We did go over this in detail during our preseason. For those of you who don't know me, I am your venue director and have been for quite a long time. And we've had the benefit of Greg Collins stepping into the assistant venue director. He is our certified safety and panel judge. He secures all of the officials for our events, and we have been very blessed with the officials that have judged our competitions and pre-seasons as well. Governing body, nothing has changed there. We Special Olympics, we follow the sports rules of the competitive cheer, and the international sports program is the ICU rules for the specials abilities, and the ICU rules are always employed except when they're in direct conflict with a Special Olympics sports rules for cheerleading. And we also follow.
Let me share my screen again. All right, and we can go ahead and continue, and we'll just let people in as they come.
Yep. We can actually go to the next slide. I think everyone is quite familiar with our governing bodies and rules. We briefly went over this real quick, just to go over it again real quickly. Team registration will begin at 9:15. Please ensure that it is only the head coach of the team that is checking in the teams. Sometimes we've had parents trying to check in the individual athletes. Again, please leave that to your head coaches. When you do check in the event an athlete is unable to attend the games at competition, please communicate that at registration and they will be removed from the roster. As a reminder, all athletes and or partners must arrive 30 minutes prior to their scheduled team warm-ups. We can't make any alterations to the schedule, due to an athlete or partner not being present. If an athlete or partner is not present by the time that your team is to be on deck, that partner or athlete, unfortunately, will be scratched from competition. And when you register your team, you'll get a delegation packet. It'll have the competition schedule in there, a venue map. As far as your credentials, you will need to work with your area leadership. I do not have the credentials for all of the different delegations, so you can speak to them and to make arrangements to get your credentials. Okay. We'll just go into general music for the venue. It will be provided by our professional DJ, PD and Charlie, who have also been our DJs for a very long period of time. I do recommend, I know CDs are a way of the past, but I do highly recommend that you bring a CD with you. Make sure it's not one of those CDRs, as some of them won't play on systems. PD and Charlie, our DJs, they do have audio cords that you can connect your phone to, etc. However, you cannot rely on them to provide the actual connections that you need. So please make sure that you bring them with you. Music checks will start right at registration from 9:15 to 9:40. So that you can just, line up over there with PD and Charlie and check your music. Please make sure that you don't leave any music or anything at the DJ's table. And as always, the delegation is responsible for cueing their music during competition. So please make sure that you have a coach and or Class A volunteer designated. for your music. They have to remain at the sound station throughout the entire routine, and it is fully their responsibility to start and stop your music. Thank you, everyone. This was probably one of the easiest seasons that we got all the copyrights in and didn't have to ask anybody for them. I really appreciate that very much. And so I do have all those, so I do know the layout of the music. So please ensure that you haven't edited anything since the required qualifier, because that could get you a deduction of sorts. Okay, we talked about the head coaches meeting at 9:45 in the center of the mat. It's just last minute information. We're not going to go over division requirements or any technical stunting or so forth. We will follow the same mat as our qualifier. Warm-ups will be beginning and will be going on during our welcoming ceremony. As a reminder, our warm-up mats are not competition size, but I'd like to thank Melissa and Delaney High School who are allowing us to use their practice mats, and we will have 7 mats for the first time in the warm-up area, so you have a really nice size warm-up area. Please make sure that you are referring to your competition schedule when you're warming up, when you're on deck, and your competition time. I would like to say this, please. I did receive a little bit of feedback from the qualifier that there were a little bit of trying to take a little bit advantage of wanting to have more time and warm up. Everyone is given the exact amount of time and warm up. So I ask you to please respect the volunteers. And when they tell you your time is up, you do need to exit the mat to keep competition on schedule. And one of my really things that I feel is extremely important, that I say this every year, you may only practice in the designated location, i.e. the warm-up area. If I or any of the other officials encounter teams doing their routines anywhere else other than during their warm-up area, they may be disqualified. But just make sure, it hasn't happened in a really long time, but I like to make sure that I say it every season so that everyone is aware that the only practice location is the warm-up. Welcoming ceremony. Again, if you have an athlete, partner, and or coach that will be participating in the welcoming ceremony, please make sure that you have them at the podium at 10 a.m. We'll have our small lunch break. Official delegates registered, as Steve had mentioned earlier, will receive a box lunch, and the distribution is going to be at the coach's discretion. I have the built-in break time. I know some coaches prefer their athletes not to eat before their routine or to eat after their routine. But I do ask that once it is announced that the lunches have arrived, that you only send the designated person or persons from your county to collect the lunch for your delegation. We've had parents and so forth go up to the lunch tables to get the lunch just for their athlete. And I do ask that you speak to your parents regarding that the county delegation will pick up the lunches for their delegation. Okay, I think we're all really good with our competition etiquette, but just a few reminders, because sometimes people are excited and the parents, they don't necessarily see where they're walking at time. Please make sure that no one walks on the competition mats. These mats are donated for our sport to use. So I always want to make sure that I am returning them in better condition than they may be given to us. Please do not walk behind the judges. I know that parents sometimes get upset when volunteers stop them and ask them that they cannot walk behind the officials. There's a reason for that. The officials need to keep their attention on your athletes and to scoring them appropriately. I do ask everyone to turn their cell phones off and or vibrate mode while the competition is going on, so that the full attention is on the athletes. And we do understand that phone calls need to be taken and such, so just please, I ask you to take those conversations to the lobby to have. Also, please make sure that we're keeping the bleachers, hallways, stairwells free and clear, and that we're not blocking any emergency exits. So in the event there would be an emergency and we need to exit the venue, that we can do so in a safe and orderly manner. Please review that with your parents. In the event that there is an emergency, they are not to come and run to get their athletes out of the bleachers. That is the coaches and delegations' responsibility. Okay, so we have our area that we step outside to in the event that there's an emergency, and that is where the parents can collect their athletes if warranted. And we do ask that the teams and spectators remain seated or limit their movement as much as they can while they're in the bleachers, while the delegations are performing their routines, and by all means, show your team spirit. Our awards will be presented directly at the conclusion of competition. We will hold our awards on the competition mats, excuse me. I will ask the coaches, as we have in the past, to please assist when we come down to get ready for awards of setting your teams around the perimeter of the mat, not on the mat. I like to keep the mats open so that the teams can stretch across the mat when they're receiving their awards from the officials. And always, we will pause for each team for families to take pictures of the teams that they received when they receive their awards. Directly after competition is finished, you will also be able to see the results for the entire competition. It will be posted in the lobby of the Towson Center. And your score sheets, you'll be able to pick them up from me at the end of the competition. I like to try to hand your score sheets to you at the time of presentation of your award so that you don't have to come back. And Towson is a smoke-free campus, so we do ask that you please refrain from using any tobacco products. That does include vapes during the 2023 Special Olympics Summer Games. Just a couple rule reminders. Your routines, everybody's routine must be 2 minutes and 30 seconds with the exception of skills. Unfortunately, we don't have any skills competitions this season, maybe next season. For your cheer routine, that you have both cheer and a music portion. Your cheer portion minimum is 30 seconds. Stress the word minimum is 30 seconds, though it can be longer. And the maximum music time for your cheer routine is 2 minutes. For our performance cheer, which is hip hop and freestyle palm, the entire routine, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Excuse me. Spotters, you all did a great job making sure that you had Class A spotters, but there were a few teams that did not have the additional required spotter for all stunts and pyramids that were at prep level or above. Okay, so if you're going above, you're here at your waist, make sure that you have those spotters. Okay. The ISU rules don't give a specific age requirement, but our rules does modify that. Is that your stunts are at waist level or above require the spot of a certified coach and or certified sports volunteer who has to be 18 years of age or older. And please ensure that they are dressed in contrasting attire as to the athletes' uniforms. And just a quick reminder, if an athlete it wears a medical necklace or a medical bracelet, if you could please tape it to their body. I highly recommend the paper tape, because in the event if there is an emergency, paper tape is very easy to remove by the medical team, as opposed to the more white stickier tape. And jewelry is at the discretion of the officials. So no earrings, no belly rings, none of those types of things. The only jewelry that is allowed in the cheer competition is the medical alert bracelet, and the little bit of jewelry that's allowed in the hip hop routines. Just as a brief remember that you have your coaches boxes. There are 2 coaches boxes, okay? You may, when your team is called to the mat, place them in their proper position for their opening of their routine. You are able to give them both verbal and physical cues from your coaches boxes. Please make sure that you stay within the coaches boxes and that you're kneeling down. There is a total of 3 coaches and or sports volunteer are allowed to signal from the front of the mat. And you have to stay within the coaching box. The ICU rules allow for an unlimited number of assistants around the perimeter of the mat. That's not allowed for our state competitions. And once the coach comes off the floor and is in the box, they cannot go back out onto the performance floor. And please also ensure that everyone, including our visitors, parents, grandparents, etc., are all showing positive, wonderful sportsmanship. If the official feels that there is any unsportsmanlike conduct, it is at their discretion to have points deducted from your routine. We've never had a problem. Props. We really didn't have many, but please just make sure if you are using props, palms, signs, megaphones, that if a part of your routine is to discard those, please make sure that we're not throwing them across the mat, and that they're being careful not to step on palms. As we all know, they are extremely slippery. Of course, there are some things that just happens. It wasn't an intent for the sign to go off in a certain way. The officials know that. They have been judging our athletes for a very long time. But, just please, you have a little bit of time before competition, just to practice that with them. ICU allows other items as props, but at our state competition, we only allow signs, palms, and megaphones. And for our performance cheer, handheld props, freestanding props in any category are not allowed. There are no large freestanding props are allowed, like a chair, a stool, but none of that was in any of the routines. I just like to remind those special rules for competition. Scoring, we do have a few division that does have only 1 squad. So a squad or individual will not automatically receive gold. They must score within 20% of the maximum judges' points that are allowed. During our state competition, you have 5 officials and a safety official. When the scores are calculated, the highest and the lowest score is dropped. And we bring those 2 scores in the event that there is a tie. There is the official deduction sheet that is calculated separately. So if there was a deduction for a bobble or such, that deduction is removed from your score to give you the final score. We talked about medical alert bracelets and necklaces, and make sure that your athletes' nails are trimmed and that we're not having the nail polish, and above all, we all know how slippery glitter is. No glitter, please. Melissa, I'll give it to you.
Thanks, Anna. I'm not going to read through this. I just know and remember that everyone has a code of conduct. There's athletes, unified partners, coaches, volunteers, spectators, family members. Everyone has a code of conduct, and we want to ensure that everyone is following the codes of conduct at all Special Olympics Maryland events. And even in between events, we want to make sure everyone is following these conducts to ensure that they are representing Special Olympics in a good light. So just kind of keep an eye on your teams, yourselves. I don't think we've really had too many issues, maybe kind of bordering, but not too many issues with codes of conduct, but just please ensure that your family members and spectators do have a code of conduct as well. And if anything, they could get brought in front of the conduct committee. So please ensure just your teams and yourselves are acting appropriately and following the codes of conduct. And that is it. For any questions, obviously you'll come to myself. My email is right there, even though I think you all have my email. So does anyone have any questions? I know we lost a bunch of people when we accidentally got kicked out, but those that joined us again, thank you. Any questions? I know there's a couple of new coaches on that have never participated in summer games.
I haven't seen anything come through the chat.
Thank you.
Just about your belly ring.
I'd like to, on behalf of the cheerleading venue, myself, Greg, and Melissa, we can't wait to see you and your teams in a few weeks. And I know that we are going to have an amazing competition as we have for many years. And if you need anything, please, of course, feel free to send me an email, and I will respond back to you. What is the maximum score for traditional into small?
Intros, small.
I'm sorry?
Introductory, small teams. Traditional
What is-
introductory teams.
Well, all squads have the ability to score 300 points. Yeah, 3 judges.
Okay. And like Anna said, I just want to echo, thank you guys for an amazing season. Without you guys, we couldn't have this event or cheerleading, and if that. But a huge thank you to Anna and Greg for putting everything together. Definitely without them, we definitely would not have this event. And if we did, it would not be as good as it is. We have an amazing games management team under the leadership of Anna and Greg, and amazing judges who judge at all events at all levels. So we are lucky to have them with us, and them giving up a Friday to be there with us. So we really appreciate everything that they do, and everything as you as coaches do. I will send out the slides and recordings tomorrow, but if you have any questions in the meantime, please do not hesitate to reach out. Next week is going to be a little hectic for me as we're setting up for summer games. So please bear with me with emails and stuff like that. I'll get to them as soon as I possibly can, but please do not hesitate to reach out, and we look forward to seeing you at summer games.
And as Anger and Anna and Greg all said thank yous, on behalf of Jim Schmutz, our president and CEO here at Special Olympics Maryland, also want to send out an additional thank you to all the coaches. I know many of you wear multiple hats throughout the year, whether it's a family member, a coach of another sport, volunteering in your local area or community. Obviously, as we mentioned, we can't have Special Olympics without the support at the local level leading up to the state championships. and everything you guys have done to prepare your athletes and partners up to this point. Get them ready. It's their turn to shine, your turn as a coach to enjoy, and just appreciate everything that you've brought everyone up to this point this year. So thank you.
Have a
Good
great
night, everyone.